Howdy, howdy, everybody. It's Paul here, and just playing around with curves, and I thought I'd go over this stuff. First of all, user preferences, and just type in extra, and you can turn on your extra curve objects. So that's a default add-on that comes with the usual install Blender or in the folder that Blender comes in on. So look for the extra objects that can save a lot of time. And add a curve. I'm sure everybody's seen the circles or the Bezier type circle. I'm just using this for a profile, and you can hold down a shift and Z, and that will constrain it to the plane that the Z is a normal of. So if you want it to stay flat without changing to a 2D curve, that's the way to do it. Also, if you're trying to rotate a handle and it doesn't want to rotate, you just change the type to free, and then that works. So if you're wondering why it's not rotating or something, that's one way to do it. And sometimes these handles like this gets in the way if the things are too close to each other, so you can hold down Control and Space to turn that extra doodad off, and I just use the shortcut keys. Like G for grab and R for rotate and stuff like that. Same as in editing meshes and stuff. But note, when you set your handles to free, you can move parts separate. So that's where if they're aligned and you move a part, it stays aligned. Just letting you know that. So I'm just making this shape here, and I'm going to go back to object mode and move that off to the side and add a new Bezier curve. I prefer the Beziers. For me, I find them easier to work with. I know some people like to use the NURBS, but this is fine. And for stuff like if you were doing hair on a character, you can snap your cursor to the starting point, or the starting vertex. And the arrows always go from the starting vertex to ending vertex, so you can do that. So snap your cursor to that, go to object mode, and set the origin. There's Control Shift Alt C, there's the hotkey, but I usually just use the sidebar because I don't like playing keyboard twister half the time. So origin to 3D cursor, that's your starting point. And the reason for doing that is if you have an object like a UV sphere or something, you want to snap this onto the sphere like it's hair, you set the origin to that starting vertex, and it's a lot easier. So I'll switch this to face, and now it will snap on there like so, and you can rotate it around or whatever. I'm going to treat this like it was a hair, so I am going to set a bevel object, and now it's like extra huge. You can scale this down, or the bevel object itself down, but sometimes it's not always convenient to do that. So you can go into edit mode and use Alt S to scale the points. More than one can be selected at a time, like so. And Alt W, and Specials menu is actually really handy for curves, so I use the W Specials menu a lot. I don't know what they did with the hotkeys in a new version of Blender, but I'm using the more classic version, which is the 2.79, which is that before they changed everything for 2.8. I can't even run that one on my computer, so I don't bother with it. But if you do that, you can subdivide, and on tools menu you can set the number of cuts. So I'll do like 2 or 3. Let's make it 3 for now. You can do stuff like move your curves around, whatever you want to do, right? And then for something like a hair coming out of a head, you would shrink this one down to like next to nothing, and that one would be a point. You notice it kind of looks weird, so if you go here, since this is a Bezier, or Bezier, I guess, you go to the active spline settings, and you can change that to like cardinal. I find cardinal, sometimes B-spline works too, but cardinal usually works good for this. And right now it's kind of lumpy, so you can move these around. But yeah, it still looks lumpy, so you got this as a single point. Like it's scaled down to 0. This is close to it. And you want these to be a much more smoother transition. Well, what you can do is click one of the... Say this is where you want it, and that's where you want it. If you want a smooth transition between, say, this one and here, you can click the in between, use specials. Or let's say this one is the one we want to transition to. So the two in between points are the ones you select. Hit W, and we're worried about smoothing the radius. So there. Now the radius between this point here and that point there is smoothed out. It can be very useful depending on what you're doing. And you can adjust these like so, and it's still not perfectly smooth, but you think you get the idea. And some of that has to do with the bending or the scaling. Yeah, relax the scaling a bit. So and take this shape. We gotta go to object mode. A little flatter. And of course you have, this is all being bent around in 3D space. You gotta be aware of that. Should be obvious by now if you've seen the other videos on this stuff. This one's bunching up a bit, so it probably has to do with how short it is. Yeah. And it's next to the other one too, but it's still bunching here. Oh, and if you want to see what the curve is actually doing, because it actually converts the curve to a mesh internally, but you don't see it. If you want to see what the curve is doing, you gotta click on display wire, and that will show you what the curve is actually doing. So if you go to the U resolution on a curve, you can see that it is changing the wire density. And when you convert a curve to a mesh with Alt-C, that is going to be the mesh you are getting. So if you don't want to have to convert it right away, but you still want to know how your mesh is spaced out, just turn on the wires over here so you can see the wires. So that's one thing. And then the extra curve objects, we get all this stuff. I have it on file. Let's see, user preferences. Add curve extra objects, so it should be. Oh, I'm in edit mode. Duh. Some things that you get in edit mode are different than things you get in object mode. So, object mode curve. And so you have curly curves. It's probably hidden in the sphere right now. So do this. Work on local. Yeah, we can work on local. Okay. Over here you will get a little tool menu when you use curve object, like add extras curly curve. And see the type here? You can hold down. I'm holding down control. You can use the arrows or just drag it too. I just hold down control and scroll, and you get all kinds of different little curvy things. So you want a shape like this or that. And it has a nice spiral to it. You can do that. There's a few different decorative shapes. But say something like that might be useful for hair. So I'll just use that shape, rotate it, and I'll set the origin to where it starts. So in this case, I guess it's going to that direction. Whatever. I'm going to set the origin to there. Oh, and if you want to change the direction that these go in, you can use the special mode and switch direction. Now they're going outwards. that it matters too much, but sometimes for organization or certain paths and stuff, it helps to know which is the beginning or start. Regardless, this is the one I want to snap my cursor to. Object mode. And, yep. Set origin. Alright. Origin to 3D cursor. So that way I can snap it on there. Might have to do like this. There. And for rotating, it helps to change your view position so you can get alignment. Oh, the wrong button. There's two types of rotates, by the way. So if you hold, say like you're looking at the plane head on, that's just like the regular rotate. But if you hit rotate twice, gives you kind of like this gimbal weird behavior. Sometimes that's useful too. Just letting you know that you can do it. So we have an object like that, and then I'm going to give it that profile again. So bevel object, and see how it's like extra fat, but if you have something else that's already using its shape, like that. So I'm going to select all and then hold all this, and not hold it but press it. You can see I got bring it down to a more usable size. You can use a taper object for that, but I find you don't have the control you do with the points and Alt S. So like so, I can bring that to a point, and then I can kind of scale this one down, or and then Control T to change where that shape is. So now you got something that's like hair. And see, this one is this. And you can get stuff that resembles hair pretty quick. Yeah. And sometimes you can also, if you have points that overlap like this, you can press H, hide them, and Alt H to unhide. Because sometimes when doing circles, hold on, I'll just work on a new layer. New layer. I'm going to put the cursor in the center. I am going to add a curved circle. Alright. So there my view on it. And I am going to give this a bit of a extrude thickness so you can tell what's going on with it. Alright. So say I want a circle, but I want to add a twist in the circle and bring it back to connect itself. Well, the way, if you have the cyclic turned on, you can't do that. So you turn the cyclic off, and that breaks the circle, right? So you have to rotate that, and you can't rotate it without converting it to free. And I know from experience that the angle that it goes off by is 45 degrees. Did it again. You gotta change it to free. So there. So now it does 45. And 3D cursor RZ. Oh, I gotta extrude RZ. And 90, yeah. So that brings it back and connects it. So say these two are overlapping. If you hide one, you can, or hide both. Well, I didn't mean to do that, but so you're not sure which side you're selecting. Say I have that one selected. If I hide it, I can select the. I did it again. Hide this one, and then you can select the other one. Is what I'm saying. All right. And then I can do stuff like control and change the tilt or the twist 180 degrees. And now these three you want to smooth out the interpolation of it. So I'm going to do is 1, 2, 3, and hit W's menu and smooth the tilt. And now it's like really smooth in the tilt. And I got that shape. And I could, right now it's a curve, so object mode, Alt C, change to mesh, and it should line up. AWR, and the doubles do remove, so yeah, you'll get a Mobius strip like that. So there's all kinds of stuff with curves you can do. It's another one. I'll go back to this layer. You can also do edit mode. Hold on. Proportional editing of curves actually works. So increase the influence area and it's more natural. So that comes in handy. And just another thing that I could show you real quick. You can also edit a curve on a curve. So let's see. How do we do this? I'm thinking. Okay, I am going to make a curve. Curve spirals. And for that, you can use presets or this menu. And I am going to change the height and the steps. I need so many. This comes out as a NURBS curve, though. I know it's just slightly annoying, but it's okay. You can change the radius growth. So it's kind of big right now. So you have this object. Like so. So we have this spiral curve object, and use the original. Set up like so. Yeah, see, this is an NURBS curve. And if you try bending it, like, it's still a little weird. You can hold down Control and select a path to twisty. See, up, I think is better. Okay. Yeah, you can change the twisting mode too. Sometimes that's better for consistency. Like so, and then I'll want to this. Selecting all. Oh, it's because I have a proportional editing still turned on. That's why. Duh. It works with shrink and fat too. So be aware of that. The proportional editing does work for that. So if I want to shrink that one down to nothing and all these in here like so, I can smooth how that works with that and smooth the radius. So you get a curve like that. And I was a bit lazy one time and I used the proportional to stretch this out and move it, and sometimes it gets weird that way. So what you can do is object mode. This is still technically a curve, but you can put a curve modifier on it. And just go cursor to select it for now. Shift add. Oh, I want a curve, not a curve. Bezier 52. I can put this curve object and give it a curve modifier. This is Bezier Curve 001. So right now it's not exactly lined up. Yeah, it's probably because I have to get the origins lined up, but the idea is that if I do this the right way, should probably not. Where's the origin of this thing? Origin of that is there, so I probably have to match origins. Selection of cursor. Cursor selected. Set the origin to 3D cursor. I have to line them up. Okay, so you gotta do that. Line them up. Oh, I gotta turn off the proportional thing again before I screw myself up again. So you have a shape like this. So you have something like that. I think they're lined up, so very well. I don't know what it's doing exactly. It's being weird. Could be because of twist or something. No? This technically should be lined up. I know it is. Let's see. Balance clamp, balance clamp. Twisty. There's scaling, I believe. Where's? I'm trying to think. Balance clamp and stretch. Oh, I know there's a trick to it. There might be something off with this curve in its alignment. See, it looks like it's lined up, but I'm not sure if it actually is. Why is it like that? I don't know if I moved it off its axis. Well, this is close, I think. Anyhow. See, when I bend this, I have this curve set up with the stretching and the balance clamp set, and then it will affect the other curve that is the child of it, or it should. Yeah. So I can change that and do stuff like this with it. And as you can see, it still warps and stretches. So can adjust things like that. And stuff like that. But you get the idea. You can adjust curves in different ways. So I'm not only adjusting the curve object, but the controlling curve and vice versa. In this case, it probably would have been better to have a separate path for this, just so I could change the thickness and stuff by adjusting that. Yeah, so you get the idea. There is a weird twist on here. I'm not sure how to get rid of, but it doesn't look too bad. Let's see. Where is it? Perhaps the square selected. It is card. And alright. But you know why? Because this isn't a Bezier curve. I was looking for a setting for a Bezier. This is a nerves curve. Oh yeah, you have smooth setting. Okay, the smooth affects the nerves curve more, so that's what I was wanting. I was looking for the Bezier settings, and they don't exist on here. That's flat stretch. Yeah, stuff like that. That helped a lot. That's what I was trying to do. You get the idea. You play around with it a lot, and you can get an idea of how to build interesting shapes with curves, and that's what I was trying to show. So I know some people will just set on one specific goal, like making hair or something. And although these shapes play a role in that, you gotta know how to modify these shapes. And then on the top of that, you can do something like subdivision to make it smoother. Things like that. If I were to edit this shape, yeah, it changes. So I want to make that thicker. I can do that. But as you can see, I have other things pinned to it, so if I made it thicker for that one, I do it for all of them. So in some cases, it helps to make more than one shape for a profile, for a curve, doing stuff. It really depends on what you want to do with it. Alright. It's a little bit of a mess and haphazard, but I think that gets the idea across how you can come up with interesting shapes and quickly edit them and using curves. Alright.